budding hopes, her sprouting wings. "Jaimito!" she called when she saw him from far off. He came running across the muddy, just-turned field. How ironic, she thought, watching him. Their lives, which had almost gone their separate ways a week ago, were now drawing together again. After all, they were embarking on their most passionate project to date, one they must not fail at like the others, saving the sisters. They drove the short distance to Mama's, debating how to break the news to her. Mama's blood pressure had risen dangerously after Patria's breakdown on the front lawn. Was it really less than a week ago? It seemed months since they'd been living in this hell of terror and dreadful anticipation. Every day there were more and more arrests. The lists in the newspapers grew longer. But there was no shielding Mama any longer, Dede saw when they arrived at her house. Several black Volkswagens and a police wagon were pulled into the drive. Captain Peña, head of the northern division of the SEAM, had orders to bring Mate in. Mama was hysterical. Mate clung to her, weeping with terror as Mama declared that her youngest daughter could not leave without her. Dede could hear the shrieks of Jacqueline calling for her mother from the bedroom. "Take me instead, please." Patria knelt by the door, pleading with Captain Peña. "I beg you, for the love of God." The captain, a very fat man, looked down with interest at Patria's heaving chest, considering the offer. Don Bernardo, drawn by the commotion from next door, arrived with the bottle of sedatives. He tried to coax Patria back on her feet, but she would not or could not stand up. Jaimito took the captain aside. Dede saw Jaimito reaching for his billfold, the captain holding up his hand. Oh, God! It was bad news if the devil was refusing to take a bribe. At last the captain said he would make an exception. Mama could come along. But out on the drive, after loading the terrified Mate in the wagon, he gave a signal and the driver roared away, leaving Mama standing on the road. The screams from the wagon were unbearable to hear. Dede and Jaimito raced after Maria Teresa, the small pickup careening this way and that, swerving dangerously around slower traffic. Usually Dede was full of admonitions about Jaimito's reckless driving, but now she found herself pressing her own foot on an invisible gas pedal. Still, they never managed to catch up with the wagon. By the time they reached the Salcedo Fortaleza and were seen by someone in authority, they were told the young Llorona with the long braid had been transferred to the capital. They couldn't say where. "Those bastards!" Jaimito exclaimed once they were back in the pickup. He kept striking the vinyl seat with his fist. "They're not going to get away with this!" This was the same old violence that they had cowered under for years, but now, instead of fear, she felt a surge of pity. There was nothing Jaimito or anyone could do. But it touched her that he had found his way to serve the underground after all, taking care of its womenfolk. Watching him, Dede was reminded of his fighting cocks, which in the barnyard appeared to be just plain roosters, but put them in a ring with another rooster, and they sprang to life. Explosions of feathers and dagger claws. She had seen them dazed, stumbling, eyes pecked out, still clawing the air at an attacker they could no longer see. She remembered, too, with wonder and some disgust, and even an embarrassing sexual rush, how Jaimito would put their heads in his mouth, as if they were some wounded part of him, or, she realized, of her, that he was reviving. On the way back to Mama's, Dede and Jaimito made plans. Tomorrow early, they would drive down to the capital and petition for the girls. Not that it would do any good, but doing nothing could be worse. Unclaimed prisoners tended to disappear. Oh, God, Dede could not let herself think of that. It was odd to be riding in the pickup, the dark road ahead, a slender moon above, holding hands as if they were young lovers again, discussing wedding plans. Dede half expected Minerva and Leo to pop up in the back. The thought stirred her, but not for the usual reason of lost opportunity recalled. Rather, it was because That time now seemed so innocent of this future. Dede fought down the sob that twisted like a rope in her gut. She felt that if she let go, the whole inside of her would fall apart. As they turned into the driveway, they saw Mama standing at the end of it, Tono and Patria at her side, trying to hush her. "Take everything! Take it all, but give me back my girls, por Dios!" she was shouting. "What is it, Mama? What is it?" Dede had leapt out of the pickup before it had even come to a full stop. She already guessed what was wrong. "Minerva. They've taken Minerva." Dede exchanged a glance with Jaimito. "How do you know this, Mama?" "They took the cars." Mama pointed to the other end of the drive, and sure enough, the Ford and the Jeep were gone. Some of the seam guards left behind had asked her for the keys. They were confiscating the 2 vehicles registered under a prisoner's name, Minerva. No one had ever bothered to change those documents since Papa's time. Now they were seam cars. "Lord," Mama looked up, addressing those very stars that they had already discounted. "Lord, hear my cry." "Let's go talk to him inside," Dede suggested. She had seen the hedges move slightly. They were being spied upon, and would be from now on. In Mama's bedroom, they all knelt down before the large picture of the Virgencita. It was here that all the crises in the family were first addressed: when Patria's baby was born dead, when the cows caught the pink eye, when Papa had been jailed, and later when he died and his other family had come to light. Now, in the small room, they gathered again: Patria, Noris, Mama, even Jaimito, though he hung back sheepishly, unaccustomed to being on his knees. Patria led the rosary, breaking down every now and then, Dede filling in those breaks with a strong, full voice. But really her heart was not in it. Her mind was thinking over all she must do before she and Jaimito left in the morning. The boys had to be dropped off at Doña Leila's, and Minu had to be sent for in Montecristi, and the pickup had to be filled with gas, and some bags packed for the girls in whatever prison held them, and a bag for her and Jaimito in case they had to stay overnight. The praying had stopped. Everyone was crying quietly now, touching the veil of the Virgin for comfort. Looking up at the Blessed Mother, Dede saw where Minerva's and Mate's pictures had been newly tucked into the frame that already held Manolo, Leandro, Nelson, Pedrito. She struggled, but this time she could not keep down her sobs. That night, as she lay beside Jaimito, Dede could not sleep. It was not the naughty insomnia that resulted from a trip out to the shed to listen to the contraband station. This was something else altogether. She was feeling it slowly coming on. The dark of a childhood closet, the odor of gasoline she never liked, the feel of something dangerous pawing at her softly to see what she would do. She felt a tickling temptation to just let go, to let the craziness overtake her before the seam could destroy all she loved. But who would take care of her boys? And Mama? And who would coax Patria back if she wandered away again from the still waters and green pastures of her sanity? Dede could not run away. Courage. It was the first time she had used that word to herself and understood exactly what it meant. And so, as Jaimito snored away, Dede began devising a little exercise to distract her mind and fortify her spirit. "Concentrate, Dede," she was saying. "Remember a clear, cool night, a lot like this one. You are sitting under the anacahuita tree in the front yard." And she began playing the happy memory in her head, forcing herself to imagine the scent of jasmine, the feel of the evening on her skin, the green dress she was wearing, the tinkle of ice in Papa's glass of rum, the murmured conversation. But wait! Dede didn't make up that memory game the night of the arrests. In fact, she didn't invent it at all. It was Minerva who taught her how to play it, after she was released from prison and was living those last few months at Mama's with Mate and Patria and the children. Every day, Dede would go over to visit, and every day she would have a fight with Minerva. Dede would start by pleading, then arguing with Minerva to be reasonable, to stay home. The rumors were everywhere. Trujillo wanted her killed. She was becoming too dangerous, the secret heroine of the whole nation. At the pharmacy, in church, at the mercado, Dede was being approached by well-wishers. "Take care of our girls," they would whisper. Sometimes they would slip her notes. "Tell the butterflies to avoid the road to Puerto Plata. It's not safe." The butterflies. Lord God, how people romanticized other people's terror. But Minerva acted unconcerned about her safety. She could not desert the cause, she'd argue with Dede, and she would not stay holed up in Ojo de Agua and let the seam kill her spirit. Besides, Dede was giving in to her exaggerated fears. With the OAS clamoring about all the jailings and executions, Trujillo was not going to murder a defenseless woman and dig his own grave. Silly rumors. "Voz del pueblo, voz del cielo," Dede would quote. "Talk of the people, voice of God." One time, towards the end, Dede broke down in tears in the middle of one of their arguments. "I'm losing my mind worrying about you, don't you see?" she had wept. But instead of caving in to Dede's tears, Minerva offered her an exercise. "I made it up in La Victoria whenever they'd put me in solitary," she explained. "You start with a line from a song or a poem. Then you just say it over until you feel yourself calming down. I kept myself sane that way." Minerva smiled sadly. "You try it. Come on. I'll start you off." Even now, Dede hears her sister reciting that poem she wrote in jail, her voice raspy with the cold she never got rid of that year. "And the shades of night begin to fall, and the traveler hurries home, and the campesino bids his fields farewell." No wonder Dede has confused Minerva's exercise and her poem about the falling of night with that sleepless night before their first trip to the capital. A dark night was falling, one of a different order from the soft, large, kind ones of childhood under the anacuita tree. Papa parceling out futures and Mama fussing at his drinking. This one was something else. The center of hell, maybe. The premonition of which made Dede draw closer to Jaimito until she, too, finally fell asleep.